Hello, everybody. This is Richard with Whiskey and a Dream. I'm super excited about tonight's conversation. It is to celebrate the 50th year of Pride, so I'm super, super, super proud of that. I do have two of my dear friends, Jack and Jesse, coming on. And essentially, we're just going to be talking about coming out stories and sharing our experiences. And hopefully, some people out there are able to relate. So stay tuned. We're just waiting for them to hop on. Perf, how exciting. Okay. So today we're talking about coming out stories, right? But a little bit more than that. I think the first question I want to ask you guys is, when did you guys know you guys were gay? Or realize, I should say.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Why do I have to go first?
Either one.
Because you're in the pretty makeup.
That no one will ever see. Okay.
You never know. This one's going to be broadcasted.
Okay.
Maybe Oprah will see
Wait,
it.
maybe we shouldn't say that, because what if
Maybe
Jesse
we'll get
holds
on
back?
Ellen.
No.
Because what if Jesse what?
I ain't trying to be famous. We're not into the fame game.
I cannot. So I want to say I subconsciously was aware of looking at boys in the 3rd grade.
Okay.
And then like I didn't actually like pay attention to like guys until 10th grade.
Okay.
Is when I started like
That's when you kind of
crushing on.
realized? Mm-hmm.
But I didn't actually like internally like tell myself like, dude, you are gay until like senior year of high school. I think I realized there was something different about me in 3rd grade, but I didn't even know what gay
it was. Yeah. Makes sense. What about you, Jackie?
I feel like I've always known, even like I feel like the moment I could think, I kind of knew. Like I've always had an attraction to boys.
But I feel like an attraction comes at a later age, whether it's like 10, 9, 11, 12, 17, you know what I mean? Before that though, did you like think anything different, or were you just like not really interested? Because for me specifically, I feel like other people knew before I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was 7 when I moved from the Philippines to San Diego, and that's really one of the earliest memories I can remember, like a little bit before that here and there, but like true memories that I remember and know, it would be around that time. And even when I was 7, I was like prancing around in my grandmother's heels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like people kind of knew. I felt like people knew before I did, because they would ask, like, I feel like they would ask behind my back. You know what I mean? You know, when you're a kid and people just don't think you understand what they're talking about, and you're just like, bitch, I'm listening, I'm right here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I felt like that's kind of the case with me. Did you have anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Like I moved here when I was 6 from Hong Kong. I've just always been more into boys and girls. I feel like I've always known I was gay.
Yeah. And then what age would you guys say would be that time where you're like checking out men and acting on it? Did you guys act on it once you realized?
No, later on in life. I waited until I was older.
Because
I didn't go on my first date until I was 20.
So 2 years after you realized you were gay? Okay, so does realizing you're gay, is that different from kind of accepting that you're gay?
Yes. Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah.
Because you realize it and be in denial for so long, like I was.
I didn't want to be gay for years because it's always that kind of that picture in your head, right? I don't know if you guys had this. I've always had a picture of in my head of like the traditional couple and growing up and having families, having children, right?
Mhm.
Is that something that you guys pictured, or were you just like, no?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, every Sunday it was instilled into my head that like being gay is like not okay at all.
Did they talk
And
about it?
yeah, like not
Really?
my family, church.
Really?
And then hmm
Huh.
well, my family is Pentecostal. So it's very like that kind of Christianity is very conservative and very strict. Like
I
it was
wouldn't,
very controlled.
yeah, I wouldn't have thought they would bring it up though at like services. You know what I mean?
Maybe
I
Spanish
think
ones.
it's very common.
It
Yeah.
is?
Yeah,
hmm
because they try to say that being gay is a sin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
in the
Like if
Bible it says
you're
abomination.
definitely, yeah, you're definitely going to hell. No ifs, ands, or buts.
But that it's also very conflicting because the Bible also teaches you to love everybody. You know,
That's mhm.
so it's a very contradictory statement.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make sense.
Jack, I don't think we've ever talked about religion before. To I think
Yeah.
we did, but like to a certain extent, and I don't think we've ever really like went through with it.
I'm not religious, so I can't you know, I don't talk about religion because I'm not religious.
Yeah. What growing up, what were you exposed to? Were you exposed to Christianity, Buddhism, or
I went to church a few times for Christianity, but it wasn't like
okay.
anything that I was like forced to do. Um, but that was it.
Okay. And Jesse, what you said, what was you said your family was something?
Pentecostal.
Is that under Christianity too? Kind of
hmm
form?
It's under
Okay.
Protestant.
Oh, see, I'm learning something. You know what? Fun fact, I actually took world religions in college.
Hmm.
What?
Clearly, I
Did
didn't
you
pay
like it?
attention. But actually, it was so interesting. It was one of the most interesting classes that I've ever taken. And, you know, at that time, um, I was very much Catholic, and I say that loosely, as Catholic as I could be at that time. Um, so I almost felt this guilt of taking this class. And actually, I didn't finish it. I ended up dropping out of it. But it was really interesting while I was there. And I didn't drop out of it because of Christianity. I dropped out of it just because school's not for me. You know what interested me the most out of all of them was Hinduism.
Yeah,
Why?
it's so intricate. It's such a complex religion.
It is. It's so complex. And I think what I liked about them was that they, and it's been like 15 years, so I might be wrong on this, but they find different
They have a
gods and
lot of.
different things. Yeah.
hmm
And it's kind of like you're you're kind of like respecting all living things, whether it's the bug to um the trees to everything in humanity. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I took away. And of course, I didn't practice it. I was just kind of learning the surface level of it. But it was really interesting to me. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. Um, yeah, it was really interesting. I forgot how we ended up in this topic, but it's supposed to be coming out, not religion, you know? But I kind of
No,
like where
but
the story goes. Huh?
yeah, I definitely agree that Hinduism is it's so intricate that you can't ever like I feel like I can never stop learning about Hinduism. I feel like whenever I watch a YouTube video on it, it's always like a different subject, a different god, a different place in like wherever it's like
Yeah, I think it's
celebrated.
intricate and it's broad because
Right.
I feel like anyone can relate. You know what I mean? Whether or not
Yeah.
you believe it, anyone can relate. And I think, I want to say yoga is based on Hinduism, correct?
I
A
think
little bit.
so.
More of a
I think so, yeah.
spiritual, not necessarily religious practice. I will say, I'm not a college person. Like, I hate school, like, absolutely hate school. But I do think there are certain things that just like broaden your mind and open your world up a little bit more. And world religions taking that allowed me to be, I want to say, allowed me to be a little bit more open to others' beliefs and why they believe that and why they follow certain religions, even if I don't. You know what I mean? And I think that's
Yeah.
important. I think you don't have to agree and follow and, believe the same thing, but as long as you're open to why they're doing that, like, it is what it is. It's fine.
I mean, I feel like what it's gonna do best is definitely give like the best thing you could get out of doing stuff like that is getting a new perspective on something that you didn't know about at all, or just a little bit.
Hmm.
And then you have more understanding instead of just being completely like oblivious to something.
Yeah.
Because
Did I
that
ever tell
caused
you what happened?
I was gonna say I feel like that caused a lot of like problems when like 9/11 happened. People just like I remember back then no one really knew or spoke about Islam as a
Hmm.
religion.
Hmm. I
Well,
agree.
at least my
And
class.
that kind of brings me back to why I started this podcast. And me and Jack have kind of talked about this a little bit, where I've been oblivious to a lot of things. And I've always
Mhm.
said, like, ignorance is bliss. If you don't know about it, like, it doesn't affect me, it's fine.
Very true.
And
Hmm.
definitely turned a blind eye on a lot of situations and a lot of topics. But one of the reasons why this is so important to me is because we have conversations like this where even right now we're supposed to be talking about coming out stories, but it just kind of like bled into something else and it evolved into something else, which is so interesting to me. And even I want to say the other, like, over the weekend, my family, we ended up taking those pride picture or the have pride pictures on Saturday, right,
Yeah.
to celebrate world pride. And like they were asking me different questions. They were asking me, like, what is the difference between trans and gay, and what is queer, and what was so interesting to me was my niece, I think she's 12. She was like, well, isn't queer how you would identify someone if you don't know how they identify themselves? And I was like, yeah, it actually is that, because everything falls under that umbrella, And for
Hmm.
a 12-year-old to know that, I was like, wow, like they know
It's
a
amazing.
lot.
Yeah.
Patience,
Hmm.
man.
Like you never know, you know what I mean? So, and those conversations are happening, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we've ever like opened up questions like that. So with that, I think, ooh, that was a good transition. Um, with that, I do want to ask, like, who did you guys first talk to about being gay? And I know, Jesse, with you, like, you haven't quite come out to your family just yet, but like, who was the first person you talked to about being gay?
The first person I ever said it out loud to is one of my friends that I'm still friends with to this day. Her name is Lisa.
Oh,
Um, she is probably she's probably the only person, one of few, who isn't in the makeup world. And she herself has now developed into being queer. She
really?
just says gay. I think she dates everyone.
Okay.
Um, but I came out to her, and she was the very first person I came out with, and I felt the closest with at the time, which is why I came out to her.
Hmm.
But even then, I was still like, "Oh my God, is this something I
How are you
really
gonna
want to
do
say
it?
out loud?"
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wanna I wanna get a little bit deeper on that. Like, how was it like, hey, I wanna sit down with you and talk to you, or was it a hangout moment? Like, what made you decide at that moment? And did you
we
plan it? And how did
no,
it
it was
happen?
not.
Okay.
So we were hanging out. We used to work at the same job, and we were hanging out at her house. We would just like sit and chill and just like watch TV and talk. And I remember just laying there and I was like, I might as well tell Lisa because I had
Yeah.
to tell someone, start with someone.
Right.
And so I was like, I want to tell you something. She was like, okay. And I was like, but I don't want to, but I want to, but I don't want to. She was like, are you trying to tell me you're gay? And I was like, yeah. So basically she came out for
She
me.
I love it. And I can totally see you, like saying something like that. It's kind of funny. How did she react? Was she like,
She was like, I knew. I already knew.
yeah.
I was like, how? And then she said something about me writing something on her Facebook wall about her welcoming her to the job. I don't know.
Wait, what?
Wait, how does that
I don't
connect to being
I'm
gay?
confused.
Because you're nice?
know. Basically, for being a little fruit.
Okay. Cute. What about you, Jackie?
The first person I came out to was one of my cousins who I actually don't talk to anymore.
The one,
You know,
yeah,
yeah, the one I've told you about it. We've had a following out.
yeah.
She made some kind of homophobic comments and still doesn't realize what she
That was
said.
hurtful.
That was hurtful. You know, even me pointing it out to her, she didn't even try to be like, well, what was it that I said that was offensive? Versus
Mhm.
she just said, well, I'm sorry you took offense. Like, you know, I'm sure it was a misunderstanding and you took offense to it kind of thing.
It was like backhanded a
Which,
little bit.
yeah, it's like a very backhanded, which is why I decided not to continue that relationship. And I think that happens a lot in people that come out, which is what one of the fears that a lot of gay people have when they're coming out is, you know, are they going to lose their friends and family? Which that did happen to me. You know, I came out to my sisters first. I mean, the first question they all, you know, and I think it's a first question for a lot of people when when they first hear someone is gay is, are you sure?
Yeah.
Um, are you sure? Like, have you been with a woman before? Like, how can you know if you've never been with a woman? And they ask me all those questions, and I'm like, I am sure I'm gay. Um, so this my sister closest to my age took it the best. My oldest sister, which I've never really had a good relationship with her, she took it okay, but at the same time, the reason why I don't talk to her is because she's a very selfish person, and she's always been like that her whole life. And she's kind of one of those people that like expects people to wait on her hand and foot, like especially like her husband. Like she expects them to go to work and make the money and take care of the family, which you know some people are like that, but I'm just like that's not my mentality.
Yeah.
Um, my mom was the one that took it the worst. When I first came out to her, she told me she wanted to kill herself.
Oh.
Um, that was something that was
Oh,
so hurtful for me because at the time I was actually dating someone, and we had a fight. So we had a fight. I was very emotional. I was at home like literally crying, and my mom's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Mom, I have to tell you something, but like I need you to promise me you won't be mad." And when I told her was when she said she wanted to kill herself. Um, and I didn't even have to tell my dad. My dad literally heard it from my mom, and my dad was very supportive. He called me and was like, I don't care if you're gay, like, you're my son, I love you. But obviously, my mom, like, you know, made him kind of choose a side. So, you know, I distanced myself from everyone. Um, so I lived in my house for a couple more months with my family, and one day my mom needed something. She needed me to drive her somewhere, but she didn't have the balls to ask me herself. She decided to ask my brother to ask me, and I literally said, "Well, why can't she ask me herself?" And
Right.
and even before then, like whenever we were like in the same like room, she would be slamming the cabinets, like making noises, like just sounding like very pissed off. So when you know, when that whole thing happened with her asking me and she didn't have the balls to do it, that's when we got into this huge fight. And I packed my stuff and just left. And as I was leaving, she told me to get in a car accident and die. And
God.
that's the last thing I've ever heard from her in over 10 years. Like,
Wow.
and I don't regret it. I actually don't regret not having her in my life because she's such a toxic person. And I am lucky and fortunate that I had really good friends
Yeah.
that supported me during those times.
Yeah.
Because anyone that goes through something like that, they can, you know, they can turn out really bad. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
people will commit suicide. Some people will, you know, be really angry and resentful and just become a really bad person. But I chose not to become that person, because I relied on my friends, which I always say, like, my friends are my family, which is why I place such a like importance on who I have in my circle.
Yeah. I well, how old were you at that time?
1920.
And
So young.
yeah, so young, but you know, it is still even a little bit older from what a lot of people go through.
Yeah.
How did you, I mean, clearly you weren't ready to even move out at that point because I don't know if you were
Yeah,
already
so
planning, but like how did you handle it?
yeah. So I lived with my I lived with that cousin that I spoke about earlier for a few months.
Mhm.
But her mom and, you know, my mom are like best friends. So, you know, they still had contact. So I lived with them for a couple months and then I just kind of moved out and lived with friends that, you know, had extra rooms that I could stay in that I would pay rent for until I was able to get my own apartment. You know, and I've been on my own ever since.
Oh wow. And I think stories like that is what needs to be heard by a lot of people because think about like what your mom said to you and then what you had to do to kind of live. And you know, like you said, a lot of people do kind of turn to the streets and like get into some really dangerous things when they're in that state of mind. So now that you've kind of worked hard, you've still, even I've known you for how long now? It's over like 6 years since
Yeah,
2014. Yeah, we're
yeah.
about to go 6 years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you too, Jesse, right? 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
24.
both of you guys have known you guys for
I met Jesse
2014.
when I started at Mac.
Yeah, and then to see from like to hear your background like that, to see how you worked as an artist and how you worked super hard at that, and now you're kind of building your career and you have your own house and you're doing really well for yourself. So super super inspiring, and I love that story. With me, I think, oh gosh, it's so funny because I feel like everyone knew beforehand. So at one point, I felt like I didn't need to come out. And it was just like, okay, yeah. So even in my middle school, because middle school was when I was like, no, I'm not gay. Elementary
Hmm.
and middle school, I was like, no, because those were the times that I was like, I don't want to be, even if I already knew at that time I didn't want to be, right? So like it was a moment where I was like, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. And then it just sort of something clicked where I was like, yeah, I am. Anyone who was new knew I was gay or new friends, new people who were coming into my life after freshman year knew, but anyone before that, no. Like, and then it was like a weird it was a weird time because at one point it was like half the people in my life knew and half the people didn't. So then sometimes like I don't know, um I have these two friends that I met at Hollister when I used to work there, Kimmy and Kim, where the rest of Hollister knew I was gay, But because our other friend, lady who went to, like, I've known her since 5th grade, like, like I've always said no. It was like it was a weird dynamic because we're all friends, all four of us, up until this day. Like, we just went to lady's wedding last year. So it was weird because it's kind of like, well, now I have to tell Kim and Kimmy that I'm not too. Like, just so, because they started hanging out with family, right? And at that time I just like wasn't ready, or I wasn't like accepting it. Well, fully, you know what I mean? Like, or I didn't want to go back on the word that I said no to at first, you know? So that was like such a weird dynamic and such a weird time for me, because it was just like, I was like, what's happening here? But what I appreciate most about those friends is they didn't care. Like, they didn't care about me coming out. They didn't care about me telling my family. They didn't care to talk about it because they knew I wasn't ready. They just, it was just like, okay, whatever, you're gonna tell us when you tell us. And I even have this amazing friend, her name is Liberty, where like, you know, she went to high school with me, so, and to middle school with me. So from what she knows, I'm still denying everything, but she would be the one, even when we like turned 18 or started to party or whatever, she would be the one kind of taking me to like gay bars and like meeting these gay people and exposing me a little bit. And though it wasn't a lot, it was, she was still the closest connection that I've ever had into the gay scene. So that's why I definitely keep that friendship around, because like you said, Jack, like those friendships are really what means the most, because
Mm-hmm.
you know, at that time when no one made you feel comfortable, they did. And so, like, even when it comes to career, we're talking about career growth. We're talking
Yeah.
about, like, you know, expanding families and all of these things. And now it's gotten to be a little bit more adult conversations, which is great. But before, it was like wild times and fun parties. But I would say with my family, my main coming out story coming out, I was at a bar, and I had already moved here. And I went to visit for, I think, probably 6 months after I moved here. And we're at a bar, and it was me and my cousins. And it wasn't, I forget how many people were there because clearly I was a little bit wasted. But we went to the bar, and the bartender, I was like ordering drinks, and the bartender was just like, oh, hey, honey, like, I don't see many of you guys around here. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, many of who? You know? She's like you're kind, you know? Like, right? And I was like, excuse me? Right? And so she goes, and two of my cousins are standing right next to me. Actually, I'm like here, my cousin Rainer and my other cousin Ryan, like right there. And I was like, excuse me? And she's like, oh, are you not? I'm sorry. Like, wait, are you not? Like, it's okay if you are. Like, you know, just very out and about and like accepting, but like it's not your place. Special, like,
Yeah.
read your audience. You know what I mean? If you already feel me pulling back, like, don't continue with it. But at the same time, I'm very glad that she did, because that's what opened the gateway to everything. You know what I mean? And my cousin turns to me and was like, my cousin Rainer turned to me. He was like, oh, he was like, I do want to ask you that question. Like, are you? It's okay if you are. You know, we still love you, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah. And then so he told the other one, the one right there. And that was kind of like the beginning of everything. So it was weird because I was just kind of like out after that, because later on that week we went to my cousin Karen's house, and it was me, Karen, and Raya drinking. And I remember we were outside in her driveway, and I told them about it. I told them what happened that night, and that, I mean, actually that night was what inspired me to tell them. And then I just kind of was like, okay, I'm out. I told my family. But at the same time, I was like, well, I guess I didn't tell my direct family. Like, I'm so confused. And
Oh my God.
yeah, it's so weird. I'm telling you, the coming out process is so weird and it's so difficult. And I still find it difficult. And I felt like it wasn't necessary at one point because I was like, well, everyone knows. It's like you'd be dumb to miss it. Like, So I think that's why these conversations are really impactful because I think there's two different points to that. And
Yeah.
I want to hear your guys's feedback because at one point, or a point that I have is like, well, if you know, you know, and what's understood doesn't need to be said. And it's not like people come out straight. So I kind of was
That's
treating it like that. You know what I mean? I was treating it like that where I was
yeah.
like, well, everyone knows it is what it is. Like, you'd be dumb to miss it, right? But at the same time, something kind of like had happened where I ended up talking to my other cousin, Kat, which wasn't there in that kind of like situation at the bar and at the night drinking. So, but we're really, really close. So, when we were having a conversation and I was like, because somebody had said something homophobic and I was like really upset about it. And I wrote this entire blog, which I would say is technically my coming out story. Would you say, Jack? Like for my
It
life,
could
right?
be. Yeah, it
I
could
think that
be.
was like mainly my coming out story because that was when I kind of addressed everything, posted it on social media, and people read it, and people in my family read it, and they actually like commented on it. So I want to say that's kind of like the truest coming out story for me. But regardless of everything, me and Kat were having that conversation, and she's like, even with me, like you never came out to me, and I always wondered why you never came out. And I was like, wait, what? She was like, yeah, you never told me you were gay. We just all of a sudden started talking about guys. And I knew you came out to Karen and Rhea. And I was like, oh. I was like, I guess I never really realized the importance of coming out, you know? And she was just like, I mean, to her, she was just like, well, I thought it was me, like, I wouldn't accept it, is what she told me. And I was like, no, I figured once you tell someone in the family, everyone knows, and then it's done. Like, that's kind of how I treated it. You know what I mean? So,
Telephone situation.
yeah, like, again, it brings me back to like, well, why do we have to come out? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but do you
but
also think like but do you also think it was right for them to tell other people? Because obviously it's something it's your news to share. It's your coming out. So for them to tell other people, was that right or
I'll
wrong?
be very honest. After the bar situation, it was like, all right, I'm free. I'm talking about boys. And I don't talk about them frequently, but to my
Yeah.
cousins or like whatever it is, like I was like, whatever, I'm free. But I was also like, that was the beginning stages of me putting makeup on myself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And wearing it
Yeah.
out. At that bar, I was probably wearing foundation or something, but like after that, the visits after that were getting like to be a little bit more androgynous.
Yeah.
Like, what are your guys' thoughts about coming out? Do you see the importance of it? Do you think we shouldn't have to?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an important it's definitely important because I think it's very freeing and liberating. But I do think at one, later down the road or, whenever that happens, like it shouldn't be a thing. Like, we should just accept everyone for who they are and it shouldn't have to be a thing that people need to hide. Um, and also I do believe that, it's your news to share that you should be the one to tell people. Like, I get it, like family will always talk, like that's just how family works.
Yeah.
But I do think when someone else tells like outs you, in a sense. Like you don't know what that person is going through in life. So there's like a fine line, you know, because that person might be going through something rough, and you're outing them might tip them over. And you know, that's what a lot of people do, commit suicide, when they're outed, because, and like, you know, they're worried that their career is going to end and stuff like that. Like, you know, you kind of take their choice away by telling other people, by outing them.
Yeah. In a situation, I think what you just set up is kind of like I was outed. And in my situation, it was kind of like, well, I thought I didn't need to
You
say it
thought it,
anymore.
yeah,
But also, I didn't feel the need to say it over and over and over again to everyone. I felt the
yeah.
need to say it to those I was comfortable with. And for me, it worked out that they just told people, and I don't even know if they just told people or if they confirmed or it just so happened. Like, I'm telling you, I thought like I just all of a sudden just came out. And I was like,
Yeah,
whatever,
but
I
I
don't care
think,
what everyone thinks.
yeah.
I didn't have
So,
to explain
yeah.
it to anyone. It was just more so like, okay, well, I'm doing my own thing. But I will say the downside to that, because I think it's so complex to me, because yes,
Hmm.
you don't want to out someone, but someone like me, I also don't want to have to explain myself over and over again. But um they were I think it's like a double-sided sword, or a double-edged sword is what they say, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
well, at one point you don't want to explain it over and over again, so you want to tell people who are important, just who are important to you. But when people know, it's kind of like now you're just like repeating yourself over and over and over again. And how many times can you possibly come out? And even until this day, I think when we were having that conversation earlier, that we always have to come out. Like when we're starting a new job, like they're gonna wonder or what have you. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like um I found my family very accepting of it, because they never brought it
Yeah.
up, because I never brought it up. But at the same time, it's like, well, why didn't I bring it up? Now I never had those conversations with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think it's just different for every single person. And I also think it really depends on your support system.
Yeah.
You know, because you had a very supportive family that was there for you. I think it makes the biggest difference, because a lot of people don't have that. You know, that they have to rely on friends. And if they don't have that, then, you know, that's when, you know, things can turn bad. Not that it always does, but like that's, you know, it does happen. You
Yeah.
know, we read about it, you know, we hear it, um, you know, of all the deaths and, you know, murders and stuff like that, of people getting outed. You know, especially like, you know, we talked about trans people, like, you know, when they're outed, they're a target. It's kind of the same thing for gay people. Is that because there's a lot of hateful people out there, as much as, you know, we want to spread love, like, and equality. There's so many hateful people out there that will put a target on you when you're different.
Yeah. I agree. Jesse, what are your thoughts and feelings about coming out?
Well, I agree. I feel like the only reason why people are made to come out is because it's not the majority
Mhm.
and it's the different. And I don't want to say it's not the norm, because I truly don't believe in the word normal. That's why I say majority instead of normal. Because I feel like, well, like you guys said earlier, like no straight person has ever had to come out to their parents like, hey, just wanted to let you know I love the opposite sex. And I feel like whenever you are introduced to someone, um, you're known as the gay person or the lesbian, or like,
There's a
I
label
don't
with it.
know,
Mm-hmm.
the label. Yeah, you're always titled that, whereas like in the majority of people it's like, oh, that's the girl I was telling you about who loves dogs or something.
Yeah.
And I think it's it irks me that that is always something that's going to be in most straight people's mind, is
Yeah.
a sexuality that has nothing to do with them.
Yeah. I will say though, I embrace it. I love being the gay guy. You know what I mean? I love being the
I do
gay guy. I love
too.
being the gay man. I love being the gay little fairy that I am. Like, I think when I was young, I was so offended. I was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
And it's because I was like so gay in the closet and doing a terrible job at hiding it anyway that how dare you call me out? Like, you're not supposed to,
Yeah.
But
I
you know what I
can
mean?
totally
Like
see
you're not supposed to. But at the same time,
it.
now I think at one point the switch kind of flipped, and I'm like, call me gay all you want. Like I love it. Like let me live my best gay life. That's a part of me. It's not the only part of me, but it is a part of me, and I'm very proud of that part of me. And that part of me has made me who I am today, and it's helped me shape who I am today, how I approach situations, how I communicate with people, my mind thought. You know what I mean? Like I really treasure that title and label for me, and like I don't mind that.
I feel like coming out now more than like let's say 20 years or even 10 years or 5 years ago has become more common.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like the more and the further we get in like in years and um, everyone continuing to educate themselves and like just being more comfortable and whatever, it's going to be a less common thing of this like coming out story.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm very much like more trans people need to speak up. They, you know, when they're in a situation in an area that they're able to feel safe in, I do recommend for more trans people to speak up because we want to break those kind of the perception that the media does give off of trans people. Jesse, do you feel like a certain point you will be talking to your family, or you kind of feel like you're good?
I'm very good where I'm at right now. I feel like the moment that I move out is when I would bring it up.
Yeah,
I won't have to
yeah.
live with my parents
I
and
feel
family.
like you're in kind of the same situation as Richard, where it's like I feel like they all know,
Hmm.
and it's just not something you have to say.
Yeah, like you don't talk about it.
Yeah,
Um,
but I feel like they know, and they're just waiting for you to say it. Not that you ever have to, but I think they definitely know, and I truly believe that they accept you for who you are because you're around them with makeup on and everything.
mhm. And I will
Very
say, when I came out, I left. I mean, I was already living here. So
Yeah.
they were all in San Diego. So coming back, I was like, yeah, but I was only there for a week. So if anything happened, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna leave. Um, but I do agree. I think when you have your own place, and this is still something that Jesse, actually, I'm looking into doing within the next year or so, is getting my own place. But I do think growing up and getting your own place is a part of the growing process and how you're able to kind of evolve. So I do agree. Are you looking to do that anytime soon, or do you have any plans of
I
moving?
want to do it within like the next 5 years because
Nice.
I'm here. I've tried to move out so many times, but
Mm-hmm.
my parents won't let me. They want me to stay home. They don't see any reason as to why I should move out. The way my family works is to move out, you have to get married. Like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. But
So,
you're grown, right? Like, we understand that you can make your own decisions.
yes, yes,
Okay. Okay.
I.
I mean, to say that your parents won't let you is a little bit of a stretch, Jesse, I will say. I think that I like that
Yeah,
you still
you definitely
respect.
have a little bit of a fear.
Yeah, I feel like it stems from different things where you do have that respect for them, and it's kind of we have that same culture. I feel like in Latino families and
Yeah.
like Filipino families. I'm pretty sure Asian families are the same way.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah, all Asians are like that, where it's like you're married and you still live in the house with your whole
yeah,
family. I think it's a pretty normal thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I also do believe that like this moving out of your house situation is true. It's a rite of passage in growing, and I'm a little bit late. I'm gonna do it at 32, but you know what I mean? Like I do believe that it's important. Um, but is that something that you constantly think about, or are you like I know that you're good with it right now and you're living your life, but or do you feel like because we're having conversations like this now, is it something you're going to be thinking about a little bit more?
No, it's definitely something that I have thought about within the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Just because I want to be able to completely have my own privacy and my
Yeah.
own place just to call my own.
Mhm. I
So
agree.
it's
I don't
definitely
think this
something
is the
that's always in
first
the
time. Yeah, I don't think this is the first time we've had this conversation, right?
no.
Yeah. About
Mm-mm.
coming out anyway.
Oh no, we've
Yeah.
talked about that many times.
Was that like too many times for you? Is that what that was?
No,
Did it seem like that?
I
He was like,
feel
we've
like
talked about that many times. Oh, do I
no.
ask about that all the time? Is that what's happening?
No, I'm just saying that I feel like we all are very well aware of the situations that we had been in when we came out. Like it's not something that we're like unfamiliar with, but I definitely didn't know that Jack's mom said that when he left,
Mhm.
or that you didn't tell one cousin and then she thought about something else. Like she thought that you thought that she wouldn't like accept you
Yeah.
or something.
I
Mm-hmm.
think like what everyone needs to realize, and I think that this is something that's been said so many times, but I feel like some people still just doesn't like they don't resonate with this statement, is that there are always people out there that will be there for you and support you no matter what. And there's family everywhere. We are in this kind of like rainbow family, as a lot of people are calling it these days. And it's true. There's so many people that are going to be out there for you, that want to be your friend, that want to be your sibling, that want to be your family. And you just have to realize that, there is a life out like on the other side, no matter what situation comes from coming out.
Yeah. Someone who's curious,
Okay.
what would you guys say um is kind of like a good resource for them to figure out if they're gay or not and self-acceptance? Let's start with that. And the process of self-acceptance.
I mean,
I
I don't know if there's like a specific
don't even know how to
resource. Yeah, I don't think there's like a
like
specific resource, but I think what they need to
Okay, should
do
I
is
should I
oh
wait,
just
wait, wait, wait. Should I rephrase that question?
No, because so it's hard because, yes, there are resources like, like the human rights, campaign and stuff like that, but they're not going to be like, well, this is a pamphlet if you're curious. So I think that is more self-discovery, but doing it in a safe and, you know, just in a safe way, making sure that they have people in their life that they're, really that they're comfortable with, that they feel safe with, and practicing like if they are going to experiment with same sex, that they're practicing safe sex. I think a good resource maybe is, you know, anything that links them to PrEP, because I think that's going to be important if they are going to be experimenting with the same sex.
I agree. A resource that I would say is, you know, researching your like pride, whoever throws the nearest pride kind of like festival around you. I think they always come up with great resources. Like capitalpride.org is a great place to go for a resource, because there's literally a resources tab there, and specifically there's a list of organizations specifically for youth resources, like Casa Ruby in DC, Metro Teen AIDS, Sexual Minority Youth Assistance League, and Youth Pride Alliance. So I think any one of those, especially from a trusted site, I think it is important to be careful as to where you're getting your resources. But a place like Capital Pride Alliance is a great organization for that, for sure. As far as kind of the steps to self-acceptance and being ready to talk to someone, may your friends or your family or whoever you feel comfortable, how did you build up that courage, Jesse?
Um, I think eventually it just started building up, and I was like, well, I had to tell someone eventually. Like, I can't just live my whole life and just,
Yeah.
die knowing on the inside.
So what
Like, I
would you
definitely didn't want to own.
yeah, what advice would you give your younger self?
Um, if I could go back and give myself advice, I'd definitely say, like, you know, feel free to explore more and just go at it in like a safe manner and in a safe space. But definitely don't be like afraid to the point where you're like paranoid.
Sure.
Like Jesse said, not being afraid to explore, but doing it in a safe way. Making sure you surround yourself with, caring, loving people that will be there for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
because I feel like I was so scared that I feel like I held myself back from experiencing life.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, just telling yourself, like, you are who you are meant to be. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Everyone that loves you will accept you. Like, just don't be afraid.
Did you guys have people in your family that were a little bit older that was in the LGBT community?
No, as far as I know, I'm the only gay person in my family.
Yeah,
Same.
me too. I think that's what made it hard. Um, I think, if I was to give myself advice, my younger self advice, I definitely agree that, be a little bit more brave. I would have conversations with my family first and foremost, because I think they're the ones who've been left out of my coming out story. And really it's because I feel like I know that they love me and they accept me, but I also have a fear of disappointing them. You know what I mean? And I think that's why they were like one of they're really one of the people that I don't speak about it to, because I just, even till now, like I'm not really sure how they feel, and more so my parents more than anything, because I feel like we haven't, side story, I haven't been there enough in this life and in where my thought process is now. But I had, like, now I'm starting to have those conversations with my family here where it was never really there before. But as far as like giving myself advice at a younger age, I definitely think to find a trusted mentor, and find, people who are like me and not so be so bitchy, because I feel like I pushed them away the most when those were the people that I needed to connect with the most to find myself, you know?
Mhm.
And really, it's true. I pushed them away because I didn't want to be affiliated, because I was like, well, I'm trying to hide. I don't want people knowing I'm gay. And if I know you and I talk to you and I befriend you, they're going to think I'm gay too, or they're going to know I'm gay. Well, Jesse, you keep us updated about your coming out story. I think, you know,
Okay.
yours isn't, I don't think yours is fully done. And I don't think anyone's is fully done, but I think you have more of a story to tell. So I definitely want to hear a little bit more about it, not only on the podcast, but as your friend too, you know? So
Of course.
thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Jack and Jesse, for being a part of tonight's conversation and sharing your stories. For LGBT youth resources in the DMV area, please check out capitalpride.org. Happy Pride!
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.